you a morning person or a night owl?
Gosh, I think I've become a morning person. Um, yeah, I don't know. The last year or two, I've had a harder time sleeping. I think I've dealt with insomnia for the first time in my life, and so I'm usually the first one in the household up, which I find funny because my dad, um, he always got up really early, which I thought was weird because I liked sleeping in. But no matter how early I would get up, he would always already be up. He would like be in his office writing or something like that. And so I think I've kind of become that.
Well, I am not a morning person, which is why I have coffee today. So for everyone that has seen me with tea and water on the show in recent episodes, this is coffee. And it is
Nice.
10 o'clock in the morning, which to me is still early. So my
Yeah.
brain is like half asleep. But welcome to the show, Aaron.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So here's my cup of coffee. It's got actual coffee in it.
Yes. All
I think
right.
it's coconut and chocolate coffee, which is nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And this is my You Matter mug. It's a logo I designed a few years ago.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, so it's part of it's a brand through the Dear Heart Ministries of Tennessee. It's run by Linda Lester out of Columbia. She was one of my wife's favorite teachers. I think maybe like in the 8th grade or something like that. And so what she does through Dear Heart is deliver flower arrangements to people who need them. Like she does a lot of like nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Works a lot through Meals on Wheels, and so uh, she's a charity, and she just spends her time sending like encouraging cards and flowers and stuff to people to brighten their day. And so this is just a little message that I like to give to people.
Yeah.
It's important.
I love that message. You matter. I mean, that needs to
Mhm.
be on billboards everywhere. We need to remind ourselves and everyone, that we all have such an important place in this world.
Yeah. What's funny is, okay, so we did this logo. I can't remember exactly. It's been a couple years. And then so You Matter, she came to us with You Matter, but You Matter was kind of already something that I was working into my artwork. And I think sometime late last year, I was sitting around thinking like, man, I really need to start putting like You Matter on some merchandise and stuff. And then I was like, oh, wait, we already did that. Look.
Where can we get some of those mugs? I might get one for the show.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you for sure. I will find out from Linda. Um, as far as I know, she doesn't have a place where she can um, people can order online right now. But sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. So I will find that out.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you. Well,
Yeah,
Aaron Graham, you are a fellow board member here at the Arts Council,
right.
and you're a local artist here in Nashville. And I love your work. I love all the meaning behind it. But tell me when you started painting and how you got started as an artist.
Yeah, well, I've been an artist my whole life. I think a lot of artists are, but I recognize that I've been drawing and just being interested in creative things as far back as I can remember. Kind of the first thing I remember doing is sitting in my room, coloring and drawing like Donald and Daisy Duck. I just turned 4. Um, and I just all through elementary school and all through middle school, I remember just that was my favorite thing to do, was just drawing. Um, I would spend a lot of time. Sometimes I would draw just things out of my imagination, or I would draw, you know, cartoon characters or Knight Rider or Transformers, things like that. Um, and so all that experience that I had growing up drawing is kind of what eventually led to the style that I have now, which is all inspired by my journey as a kid being an artist. And so I grew up loving art. I eventually kind of like, as I got into high school, I started really being interested in comic book art, and I wanted to be a comic book illustrator. Um, but honestly, I always saw that as kind of like just a side hobby. I never ever considered it to be a career, just because it wasn't something that I even thought was a career, really. I think until um, I was either a junior or a senior in high school when it dawned on me that that being an artist was actually something that could happen, that people do. Because before that, you know, like a lot of people, all I'd ever heard was the starving artist thought and the idea that you couldn't make it as an artist. And um, I just didn't know that it was a thing. And my parents were very encouraging. I mean, if I had told them that I wanted to be an artist, they would have been totally for it. Um, and I just always thought, okay, art's something I was going to do, but I wanted to be, I wanted to go into engineering, really, um, because and I think the reason why I wanted to do some sort of engineering, I thought about maybe aerospace engineering, um, even though flying is not my thing. I don't like, I'm terrified of heights, and I'm not a great flyer, but I loved space, outer space. I wanted to be an astronomer. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to work for NASA. I wanted to look for, life in other galaxies, and all of that was huge in my imagination growing up. And so I thought engineering was a term I'd heard for a profession that possibly involved some of that, involved problem solving and figuring things out. And then what's funny was in high school, I started taking um, more advanced math classes and physics classes and things like that. And I hated them. Now, it's not that I hate physics or that I even hate math, and I was good at them, but I don't know, I didn't get anything out of them. And so I thought, well, considering that's literally what a big part of engineering is, maybe I should rethink that. Um, and then sometime in my later high school years, I was at my mom's house, which I guess at the time was my house, and she was always creative, and she took pottery classes and basket making classes at the local community center. And she had somebody come over that had some, I believe, either had some drawings or had some prints that they were selling. Not selling to her, but they were just showing her, and she showed me like all these prints and stuff. And I feel like that was kind of the first inkling that I had that artists could actually sell something. I don't know what I thought before then. I hadn't really been to any museums, or I don't even know if I'd been to any art galleries. I think obviously that was before the internet. I mean, that was in the early 90s. And um, I don't know, art as a career just wasn't even on my radar. I was an artist. I was always going to make art no matter what. And so that, I think, got my wheels rolling that, okay, well, maybe I can actually pursue a career in art and do something in art. And that's when I started looking into art schools, looking into illustration schools. And then I went to MTSU because it was something I could afford. It wasn't too far away, but I'd heard that they had a good art department, which they did. And I chose graphic design as my major, having very little idea what graphic design was. But I knew that with a graphic design major, I could minor in illustration and painting, which is exactly what I did. Essentially, I thought like, okay, well, this is a great way for me to kind of take all the things that I'm interested in: illustration, writing, photography, painting, and all these things, and you can kind of bring it all together and create something with it, and then actually get hired by clients to do that. And so, yeah, so after school, I've worked as a graphic designer honestly ever since then. First for a firm, then in-house at a place, and then for myself since 2008. When I say for myself, I mean me and my wife, because she's a graphic designer too. We actually met in design school at MTSU.
Awesome.
And so we run our company's called the Gray Umbrella. It's our name, Graham, and then adding Brella to it. It was my wife's idea. So we're the Gray Umbrella. And that's the kind of the umbrella company that we do our graphic design and art under. Painting was never my favorite. It was too messy. It was too messy when I was a kid. You know, when I was a kid, I drew. I had a pencil and paper, and that was great. Sometimes I would use a crayon or colored pencils, but I didn't like the cleanup. I didn't like the setup. I didn't like, you know, you had to buy paints and all that. And I liked having everything very neat and concise. So I didn't really get introduced to paint until college. And then it was oil paint. And I liked it okay as I got started, but I didn't love it. But I kind of started learning about it and started figuring it out. We were doing still lifes and things like that. And then everything changed in 1998. I went on a trip by myself to visit a friend in Washington, D.C. And there, one of the things that I did was go to the National Gallery in Washington, on the mall there. And that was the first experience I ever had going to a real museum. And it floored me. You know, it was enormous. And it just changed my mind completely about painting altogether. Just being able to see paintings, you know, some of the paintings were hundreds of years old. Some of them were, you know, decades old, but, you know, you could literally stand there with your nose inches from them, you know, in the same space that the artist originally stood, you know, in front of them. And that just floored me. And I came back. I remember I came back and went back into I think it was, at the time, it was probably painting 3, my junior year of college, painting class. And before I had left, I was doing a Monet master study, where we essentially, you go from blank canvas to trying to recreate the painting that Monet did. And I've always and still love Monet. And you kind of figure out, you know, how they build it up. And I think when I came back, I probably got through maybe a quarter to a third of the painting. And then I basically begged my teacher to let me do something else, because I was so inspired by my time in DC that I just wanted to create. The biggest influence that had on me was I saw the work of Mark Rothko. And if you're not familiar with him, he did these color field paintings that are basically huge, just squares of color that kind of meld into each other and flow into each other. And it was something I had seen in a textbook beforehand, and honestly, it was completely unimpressed. But then seeing them in their true scale, you know, these are 10-foot tall paintings, 12-foot tall paintings, even bigger, and just being kind of engulfed by them, you know, it was just, I don't know, it was almost like turning the corner and seeing God, to just be in the presence of these paintings. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do something that gives me and other people that feeling. And so my professor at the time, she's great. I think she saw that, and she could see that, you know, I'd gotten some education from my master's study. And so she was okay with me totally switching over. And that I just started doing all these abstract paintings and was just absolutely loving it. And so I did that then, and then maybe for a year or two after college, and then kind of didn't do anything for a while, for a few years. I don't know. I don't really know why. I think I just, I don't know if I got uninspired or just got into other things, you know, after college and getting married. And I was still very much into art. And my wife, Michelle, she has always been very much into art. And we would still go to art openings and galleries and see it, but I wasn't inspired to create. At the same time, I wasn't inspired to create. I was frustrated that I wasn't creating, because anytime we would go and see other people make art, I would get kind of down on myself, like, okay, why am I not doing this? I want to do this. I feel like I can do it, but I think I didn't know who I was as an artist at all. I'd seen other art and wanted to kind of recreate it and wanted to do it, but it wasn't me. And I had ideas, but I didn't really know what to do with them. Michelle had an idea. She knew that I had drawn all these little things all through my life, like even back when I was a kid, things like, airplanes and trees and elephants and pianos and birds and all these different things. And she just said, why don't you go back to doing that? Why don't you take those drawings, do them now, and incorporate them into your work? And in retrospect, it was a fantastic idea. But at the time, I was not 100% sold on the idea, because to me, these little drawings that I'd done were nothing. It was like, that's not art. Who's going to like any of that? That's just, doodles I did on the side of paper or stuff that I did when I was a kid. That's not real art. And honestly, that just said more of how I felt about myself at the time, and not being very confident in my abilities. But I tried it, and I tried it. We weren't showing too much, but we were involved at the time with this place called Plow House. It was in the early 2000s. It was an artist co-op in East Nashville, meaning that it was a place where artists, you volunteered, you ran shows, we learned how to put on shows, how to promote them, how to run them, how to sell our art. And at the time, it was kind of like the go-to place in Nashville for people starting out, and they wanted to be artists. And you kind of went there and you had an instant community, and you were able to show your work. I don't know if it was maybe once a month or once every couple of months. And I was showing some work that I had been showing some work that I'd been kind of dabbling with, that was still oil paint, that was still kind of like, I don't know, some kind of in-between style. I didn't really know myself, but I hadn't really gotten any traction with that at all. And so it was called a value menu show that was coming up, where they, instead of being like the normal gallery show with big paintings, everybody had these small paintings that had to be $50 or less. And when you bought them, you just took it off the wall, paid for it, and left, just like you would at a regular store. And so I did a big wall of these paintings, kind of like she suggested, of just different stuff that I remember painting and drawing when I was a kid, and they sold out instantly. I think an hour into the show, my wall was blank.
Wow.
Yeah, which was both mind blowing and embarrassing at the same time, because I had people like coming to see my work, and there was nothing for them to see, which was kind of funny.
Here's my blank wall.
Yeah, it's a problem that I wish I had a lot more of now. But I think that instantly showed me that, okay, this is something. And so that was 2005, 2006, that era. And I've been doing that ever since. I feel like I still have a lot of inspiration from my childhood. I have a lot that I feel like my inner child still has to say, both to myself, to my son who's 13, and just to, I think, anybody who who wants to be able to kind of access that part of their life. And I don't know, I'm having a blast with it, and I keep getting to do more and more projects. It's funny, like I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for 17 or 18 years now, consistently. And, that to me, like I use that every once in a while to tell myself, like, that must mean that I really enjoy doing this, because I'm still doing it and it's not easy. And I've had really, big successes, and I've had a lot of flops too, you know, but it's like I keep going back to it, and keep still finding a whole lot of really fun things to do with it.
Yeah. And what I love about those paintings that you're doing, there's such a comfort in those moments of childhood. There's such just that remembering back to that time when we were just free to create, and we didn't think about, we didn't let so many things, come in and just kind of stop us from doing things. We just went and created. I love when Jill was on the show, she talked about, if you tell a child they can draw a thing, they just go and they draw the thing. But if you tell, an adult, they might say, oh, I can't do that, because we get to that place where we just kind of stop ourselves. And I just love that. Yeah, there's such a comfort and an inspiration and just a happiness in what you paint.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks. I try to, anytime I approach a painting, I do, I feel like part of what people respond to it is I try to be happy, but also honest. People have said, I've probably said too, there is definitely a whimsy in my art, but I feel like it's also not purely like whimsical art, because I feel like a lot of the work has a happiness, but it also has like, kind of an underlying, almost melancholy under some of it, just because, childhood is complex for a lot of people and a lot of kids. I mean, gosh, several years ago, my wife and I were foster parents, and we fostered some kids, and I don't know, doing that will change your mind about a lot of stuff, in all sorts of ways, just about who people are and parenthood and motherhood and just everything, because you see stuff going on in a time of life that it should not be happening for a lot of kids. And so I always try to remind myself, like whenever I put stuff out there, of that, everybody's coming to my art from a different place. And so I try to speak to them where they are. I do draw from my own childhood, because I wouldn't be able to draw from anybody else's. But I, for every, very happy, uplifting painting that I do, I also try to do, actually, I guess they're all, I try to make them all uplifting and happy, but I try to also acknowledge that, I know for you, the viewer, everything may not be always happy and go lucky all the time, or possibly ever. And that's why, I try to, I try to do positive messaging in a lot of my art. I like writing, period, but I also just like the way words look, and I like playing around with words. I like the textures that they create. I like how words can make you feel, both the words themselves and then also how you draw and how you paint the words. Um, so that's something that I try to do a lot. It's funny, through my career, I've had times where I've done a lot more art with words on them, or sometimes I'll do a lot of art without words and kind of go back and forth. But a lot of that probably has to do with just the kind of messaging that I'm wanting to put out at any particular point in time. Right now, a lot of my art has words in them, because I feel like it's a really good way to connect to somebody. And just say like, yeah, you matter, you're not alone, or keep going, things like that.
It can be very healing, just
Yeah.
viewing a painting and what you take from that. And, it reaches you on a soul level. And that's what I love about
Yeah.
art, because it touches everybody in very different ways.
Right.
And we all take something from that art in that moment. and a lot of times it's something that we needed to see, needed to hear, on the inside.
Yeah. And, over the last couple of years, I've done several murals in downtown Nashville. And I believe they all have words on them. Because yeah, there's seven in total. The one is a group of six all along the street. And I remember thinking when I did them, I was just picturing, okay, so I can do a fun image or I can do a cool picture, which is great. But I was also thinking that of the person stopped at the stoplight, next to one of these, and just thinking like, what could they need? In addition to just seeing, an interesting piece of art, like what else could I tell them? And so like that's kind of where that always comes from. Like, what could I tell somebody who may have had a really bad day or maybe just in a very difficult point in their life? Not that a word I could say could heal them, but just like what could just give them 5 seconds of a break from that and so yeah, I believe every mural that I've done has some sort of messaging like that in them.
That's wonderful. And you can impact someone's life in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah.
can. And that's, well, that's inspiring. I love that you're doing that. And I wish more people, we need to just continue that on. We need to have more people go out and do things like that. And
Yeah.
just continue to pass on these positive messages. There's so much negativity can combat.
Yeah. And gosh, it just, it's not that negativity hasn't always been around, but for me, it just seems like it keeps getting worse. And obviously we've all been through a lot the last couple of years. And yeah, I see it maybe not so much as a mission, but just I see it as like, okay, I can contribute something good out there. Put something good out there, which I don't know. Yeah, I think there are a lot of artists doing that. I think that's you can't have too much of. There's going to be plenty of the bad. There's going to be plenty of moodiness. There's going to be plenty of ugliness and negativity out there that I think that any chance that we get to possibly put something happy or something positive into the world, I think just a little chalk over on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are these murals still available? Where can we see them?
Yeah. So the first mural that I did was is not there anymore, which is funny. Like just as of a couple days ago, it was taken down. But it was originally only supposed to be up for a few days, and it ended up being up for 2 years. So I see that as a win, even though I was very sad when I saw that it had come down. But by nature, all murals are temporary.
Right.
The murals that I've done were a little even more temporary because I did them on wood boards that were covering up some business windows that had gotten broken for a variety of reasons. Okay, so the one on Second Avenue is gone, but you can see the other series of 6. They're alongside the Nashville Downtown Hostel building, which is near the river. It's basically at the corner of First and Church Street. And they're still there. I saw them just a few days ago. So,
oh, great.
Yeah. And so I'm hoping to definitely do more. We'll see.
Yeah. And your work has been featured on television. So tell me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the show Nashville, it was on there for about 4 seasons in one of the little girl Daphne's bedroom. It was an umbrella piece that I did that I was selling out in the Art and Invention Gallery in East Nashville. And one of the show set buyers was in there and bought the painting for it. So that's always fun. At the time, it's funny because anytime we would watch the show, once we knew that it was on there, it was kind of like a scavenger hunt, just like waiting. And so it was always a fun experience seeing it come up. So that was neat. That was kind of a almost a funny, silly thing to have, but it's neat that I had my stuff on a TV show for a while.
No, that's great. And that's an accomplishment, and what a great
Yeah.
way to get your art out there, and that your art is then dwelling with other art. I'm a huge fan of film and television, and the
Yeah.
industry. So I think that's wonderful that you got to do that. And I am super excited to learn about this piano that you painted for Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, because that's been something that has been very dear to my heart for a long time. I ran a community theater program for a number of years, and we donated our ticket proceeds from every show to the Children's Hospital by way of all the items that the parents and the children use while they're in the hospital, toys and games and water and snacks and laundry detergent and all the things that that Vanderbilt provides for the families that are staying there. And we actually were able to perform for the children at the hospital on their stage that they have there. So what a neat thing that you painted an entire piano.
Yeah.
How did you get started with that?
Yeah, that was fun. That was one of the more enjoyable things I've ever done. It was completely volunteer and donated. This was the end of 2019. One of the galleries that I show in downtown, it's currently called Swipe Right Art, but at the time they were called Studio 208. And so I guess Vanderbilt, I don't know if they reached out to her asking for an artist, and she knew this was right up my alley. She got a piano donated from Nashville Piano Rescue, and then my wife helped me paint. I sketched out this scene, this whole graphic and everything, and worked on the piano for probably about a month or a month and a half on site at the gallery downtown. And then it was part, I guess it was part of a study that Vanderbilt was doing to kind of see the effect that music and art could have on healing in hospitals. And so once it was finished, it was transported to, I believe, the intensive care unit over there at Vanderbilt. And then they had just a series of volunteer musicians who would sign up and come over, and they would wheel the piano out into, I guess, the hallway and open everybody's doors, and they would sit down and just play the piano for everybody. Sometimes they would just play the piano. Sometimes they would bring in other instruments and stuff and just kind of give them a little symphony, which is really, really cool. It's funny because it happened right before COVID locked everything down. The gallery owner, Ashley, and we were actually scheduled to go over to Vanderbilt to see it and kind of get a tour and just see everything. And then our tour got canceled because COVID locked everything down. So and since then, I've never actually seen it in person since I did it. I haven't been able to get over there, but it was really fun to just be able to do that. It was a completely different mindset, thinking about like, okay, how do I do a two-dimensional piano or a two-dimensional painting on a three-dimensional piano and have it look good from all angles and lighting and everything like that. And it was neat because for you see my t-shirt, that's the little guy I do. His name is Bandit.
Oh, I love that.
He's a bird in red. He's dressed up as a cardinal. He wears this mask. And so since I was a kid, I have this piano guy that I paint. It's a guy in a hat playing a piano, but for whatever reason, I've always drawn it from top down. So you just see the shape of the piano and then see his head just like, playing it from the top. And so that was kind of my inspiration. And I have this this kind of poem that I wrote that kind of goes along with it. And these I envision it like a piano kind of floating through the nighttime sky, just kind of serenading the earth. And so that was kind of my inspiration that I took to the painting, to the piano. But that was just really neat. It was, we had an opening at the gallery before it got sent over to the hospital. And so everybody who was part of the study got to come over, and I got to meet them. And we had a jazz band come in, and they set up all their instruments, and the piano guy played on that piano. And it was really neat. It was a really fun thing. But, you know, for a while, for several years, I've wanted to work with hospitals. I felt like that's a place where my art could help, could do a lot of good. And so that was, being able to do that was a really a real treat to be able to do.
Well, thank you for doing that. My husband and I lived at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital many times with our special needs son. He was in and out of the hospital for various things. And it is things like that. It is art and programs and music and colorful, you know, pieces, beautiful artwork like that, that brightens your day, because you know, you are sitting there, just, you're there for hours and hours with no sleep. And
Yeah.
you know, there's not a lot to do, but it's also it can be a scary time, and it can be a very discouraging time. And so things like that really do help. And I know it does help in the healing process.
Right. Right.
I'm glad that you were able to participate in that.
Yeah, me too. It was great.
Yeah. I would love to see some of your art if you've got some to show today.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple here. I thought I'd show. Okay, here's a fun one. I did a few years for Turnip Green, a show at Turnip Green Creative Reuse. It's like a box that something came in, and the idea behind that show was to, you know, recycle essentially. And so here's my little bird. He's got a crown, and this was really fun. I like painting. 99% of the paintings I do are on canvas. For some practical reasons, but I always like painting or drawing on other things too. Like this is on cardboard. It's got a nice feel to it, but I also like how it's kind of 3D, you know?
Yeah.
You know, this was a really kind of neat thing to do.
And I love the cardinal aspect. That was my grandmother's favorite bird.
Oh yeah.
Anytime I see a cardinal, it makes me think of her.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're beautiful. Oh, okay. So here's the piano guy. Let's see.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so when I was in elementary school, I don't remember why, but I started drawing this piano player like this. I didn't play piano. I eventually did. I started playing the keyboard. So he's kind of one of my recurring themes, where this piano player is playing tunes and stars hanging from his piano, and he's floating through the night. And so I started painting him here with some mosaic, kind of almost stained glass feature. And I like incorporating some positive messaging with him as well. And then I also like doing, you know, just kind of very simple images like that. It's just a nice springtime bee. I like how I, you know, continue his little thing on the side. And that's fun. And then this, I do all sorts of sizes, but these are easier for me to hold up in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And this was just this idea that I had of doing an abstract, kind of an abstract, almost just mess of a painting, and then kind of bringing it all together with a graphic image in front of it. And this has a crown. And so, yeah. And so, oh, you know, this is interesting. So I found Okay, so this is a little airplane that I do. I call this airplane putt putt. When I was a kid, so my mom saved a bunch of my drawings, and um, let's see, I used to be very obsessed. This was in the Top Gun days. Used to be very obsessed with airplanes, and so I would draw all sorts of airplanes, and so it was neat kind of finding this one again, because I went back to drawing this airplane before I saw that my mom had saved, just because I remember drawing it. I remember how I did it, and that's most of the things that I do. I have a memory of how I used to draw them when I was a kid.
That's awesome. You know, they're remaking, or they remade Top Gun. I don't know
Yeah,
if it's a remake or if it's more like a sequel.
it's a sequel.
The sequel. Okay.
Yeah,
Are you gonna go see it?
yeah, I'll see it.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm interested in it.
It
So
was funny. It was so huge back then. We showed the original Top Gun to our son. I think sometimes in the last year. He wasn't that impressed, and not like we were. And it's hit or miss on the things that we show him that were huge in our day. Like, he loved Ghostbusters, which was great. He loved Back to the Future and the Indiana Jones movies and stuff. But Top Gun wasn't such a hit.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was
My
less.
youngest loves the Indiana Jones series. But I think my kids were less impressed with the John Hughes films of the 80s, which I was a huge fan of. All of those, except, well, in Home Alone, which I didn't realize till later was John Hughes. But my youngest loves that one, but not so much Breakfast Club.
Yeah. No, we watch the Home Alone movies every year, a couple times a year for sure.
Yeah. Well, they're classics.
Yeah,
I love them.
definitely.
Well, so where can we find your art? Where can we find you? Where can we follow you?
Yeah. You can certainly follow me, Aaron at Aaron Grayum, just my name, on all the socials. And my website's aarongraham.com. That has links to everything, where you can see past work that I've done. You can message me there. You can buy prints and things like that. And then in person, I show in two places in Nashville consistently. I show at Swipe Right Art, which is very downtown on 3rd Avenue. And I show down in the Gulch in a new shop called Art Beat Nashville that shows all local art. I have actually I'll be having a solo show there in a few weeks. And then this fall in August, I'm going to be showing at the Jewish Community Center in Bellevue. I'll have a solo show there. And then everywhere else that I possibly can. I'm always thinking of new things or finding new things. And so the best way, Instagram's the number one way to keep up with me. That's where I post the most. But one thing that's kind of cool is the new soccer stadium that just opened up has an art gallery in it. And so I have a piece in there this whole season, which is nice.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, if you could have your art featured anywhere, what would be the dream exhibition? Or
Gosh, that's hard. It's funny because the answer to that probably changes over the years, and I have so many like things that I want to do. I would love to have a big, massive show of enormous art at a very fancy gallery in New York or a museum show somewhere. I also think it would be really cool to do some kind of partnership with like a band, a musical act, kind of like Radiohead or Coldplay have done with some artists, to where they pick an artist who does their album packaging, but then also does like all of their media and their all the graphics for their live shows and stuff like that. I think something like that would be amazing. And then I would love to do something with the Children's Hospital. Something in terms of like, either uh, a mural or a collection of art, something like that, where people would see. And then 100 other things. I have a lot of ideas of stuff I would love to do.
We'll just
And
keep reaching
yeah,
for your goals. That's
yeah, yeah. Well, and this summer, uh, I'm doing the American Artisan Festival in Centennial Park, and it's my very first outdoor show that I'm doing. So I'm equal parts excited and terrified about how that's gonna go, because it's a lot of work, but I'm doing it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I look forward to seeing more and checking all these things out. And hopefully everybody will go on and follow you and keep up with what you're doing. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to do it.
We've known each other for a while, but I've learned
Mm.
so much more about you today.
Well, good. Good. I'm glad.
All right. Well, I will chat with you soon and I'll see you here at the Arts Council and have a good rest of your week.
Okay. You too.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.